Today, I'm going to talk about a book that I wrote, last year. It's called Sometimes Life is Tough. That wasn't the first title of it. It was going to be Sometimes Life is... I probably can't say that. We'll just go with Sometimes Life is Tough. I'm sure you'll know what I mean. Sometimes life is tough. We're going to have a look at why some kids in the care system are, and again, I was searching for the right word here, they can be a little bit different. They can be, I suppose, unique was the word that I ended up with. Why is it that some kids in the care system have got a totally different understanding of emotions to some of their peers? What is it's happened to them? The idea behind the book was that I could write this book so that kids could read it. Kids in care could read this book and perhaps start to understand that it's not your fault. You know, things have happened. Things have happened to you that shouldn't have happened to you, and they've left you in this situation where you struggle perhaps with some of your emotions. So that's the idea behind today's presentation. Let's have a look at some important background information. Who are the foster carers here, caregivers? Let's put hands up. Cool. Who are the staff members who support the caregivers? If you can put your hands up. Okay. Is there anybody that's filling both roles? That's just a bit kind of concerning. That's a bit crazy, I think, taking on both roles. I suppose I'm one of those staff members that help the caregivers. When I'm in Australia, that's one of the main things that I'm doing is supporting caregivers, foster carers, kinship carers. I'm thinking that you guys must be passionate about what it is you do. Whether you're a caregiver or whether you're one of the staff members who are supporting the caregivers, you must be really passionate about it. Otherwise, why would you bother doing it? You're not in it for the money. You're not in it for the recognition. You're not in it for the praise. So I'm assuming you're in it because of the passion. We've all got a role here. We've all got something important to give here. This is all about teamwork. I'm unlikely to become a foster parent. Every time Deb and I go to conferences and talk with foster carers, we come back, usually on a flight back or a long drive back, and we have this conversation about, you know, we should really foster kids. We'd be good at fostering kids. It would make our life so more rich, so more beautiful. It would feel fantastic. And then usually, we do have that conversation. But usually by the time we get home, the mist has kind of lifted and realization kind of hits in back to reality. And we say, no, we'll just leave the fostering to you guys. You guys can do what you do best. I'll do what I do best, which is the mental health side of things. You guys deserve today. You don't get the recognition. You don't get the praise. You don't get the professional recognition. You certainly don't get the money for it. So you get little snippets of positive things like today, like coming to a conference and at least getting some respite, getting some downtime where you can chat with other people who are doing the similar kind of role. You've earned it, so please enjoy it. Enjoy today, enjoy your lunch, enjoy the rest of what has been a fantastic conference so far. I was thinking about the outcomes for some young people that come through the care system. Now, I'm based in Australia, and from what I can gather, New Zealand isn't that different. Scotland wasn't that different either. You know, it seems to be the same problems that are coming up time and time again, but we do get positive outcomes. I'm going to show you some photographs here of people who have come through the care system one way or another. Not sure if you recognise that dude, Steve Jobs. Anybody been to see his movie? Yeah, good movie, liked it. Fatima Whitbread, I'm not sure you'll know who she is, but I'm thinking from the photograph you might be able to guess. Yeah? Javelin thrower from the UK, wonderful, wonderful athlete. Eddie Murphy, possibly the funniest man in the world, came through the care system and became possibly the funniest man in the world. It's interesting. Seal. And there's a lot more to Seal than sitting behind a desk and whatever it is that music show is that he's on, The Voice or America's Got Talent or whatever it is he's on. Marilyn Monroe. Would Marilyn Monroe have been Marilyn Monroe if she hadn't come through the care system? Would she have had that capacity? Would she have had that extrovert personality if she hadn't come through the care system? I'm not sure. Willie Nelson, a little bit before my time, but I've heard good stuff about his work. James Dean, likewise, and Babe Ruth. You can guess from the picture what he was famous for. Cher came through the care system. When Cher was in a foster placement, so the story goes, when Cher was in a foster placement, and she was about 10 years old, about the age of young Paddy here. When she was in the care system, she was in a foster placement, and her mum came to visit at the foster placement. And Mum walked away from that visit after visiting and had the kid in a rucksack on her back, trying to kidnap her, trying to take her away from the foster carers. I'm hoping that you guys don't experience that kind of stuff as foster carers, and that access visits are a little bit smoother than that. Malcolm X was another one, and then Ice-T. And again, there's more to Ice-T than his television shows. Apparently, it was a bit of a muso. There's all of these people who have been successful. Society says that these people have been successful. I'm thinking that the kid who comes through the care system, who ends up in McDonald's, flipping hamburgers with a big spatula, I'm thinking that kid's been quite successful. Would you agree? Yeah, definitely. What I'm going to share with you is one foster boy's story. This is a young boy called Billy, who's the background for this book that I'm talking about. Billy and Sarah live next door to each other, next door neighbours. They grow up as neighbours. They look the same on the outside. You can't tell from one from the other which one is the one that has the unfortunate family background. Neither families are millionaires. Both families love their kids. Billy's family aren't that good at loving their kids. They just don't understand what are the important things that we need to do, and they miss out on a few important things. In the early years, that first 7 years of life is just phenomenally important for kids. Their brain is like a sponge in the first 7 years. It's just hanging there, waiting for information, waiting for positivity, waiting for love, caring, nourishment. It's waiting there to be taught. That's where kids learn how to be people. When Sarah was growing up, she'd get bounced up and down Mum and Dad's knee, and they would sing songs to her, and they would play games with her. Billy, perhaps not traumatizing for Billy, but he just spent his life in the corner of the room. He was ignored a bit. He didn't get that important information. Life for Sarah, she got tucked into bed at night and a kiss in the forehead, we love you, we'll see you in the morning. Tomorrow we're going to go and play netball, or whatever it is tomorrow has in store for us. Young Billy just fell asleep wherever he was. He didn't get that connection. When Sarah was playing with her friends, Sarah was learning some really important stuff. Sarah was learning about empathy. Sarah was learning about turn-taking. Sarah was learning about engaging. Sarah was being socialized when she was hanging about with her mates, when her mates came to visit her at the house. For Billy, he still got to play. He had toys. He had time to play, but he didn't get that important socialization. When Sarah fell over and hurt herself, her dad was there with the magic sponge, making it all better and helping her to understand about pain and what it is and why it is. When Billy fell over, he was ridiculed by his dad. His dad was one of those Neanderthal dads who was giving him the big boys don't cry message. Yeah? Does that happen in New Zealand? Big boys don't cry? Okay. I had a wonderful opportunity to work with some residential kids in the west of Melbourne. An agency called McKillop Family Services phoned me up and said, Bryan, would you like to come and deliver mental health training to resi kids? And I must have been drunk or something. I said yes. And then I actually thought about it, and I thought, that must be the toughest audience in the world, a bunch of resi kids. So I was teaching about depression, about brain chemistry and about depression to these resi kids. There was this little gangster there. He was about 15, 16 years old, tough as all get out, hardest kid in the world apparently. And he was sitting right at the front. His name was Ed. And at one point I said, if Bryan is depressed, if Bryan's really, really sad about something, what should Bryan do to make himself feel better? Ed puts his hand up and I thought, oh no, this is going to be a nightmare. This is going to be sex, steal cars, use drugs, something like that. I says, on you go, Ed. What should Bryan do when Bryan feels sad? And Ed says, Bryan should cry. He says, you should cry when you feel sad because it makes me feel better. Isn't that cool? Yeah? Sometimes we forget that these kids actually know stuff. Even if they've been through that background, they're hearing the stuff. When you guys are working with the kids that you care for, they're listening to you. They might look like they're not listening. They might tell you to go away with the F word. Do you know the F word? Do they use that in New Zealand as well, I'm assuming? We use it a lot in Scotland. I'm particularly gifted at using it, but I'm not going to use it today. Okay, when they tell you to F off, they don't mean go away, yeah? What they usually mean is, yeah, I've heard it, I've filed it, but this isn't comfortable for me. Yeah? Would you agree with that? That's usually what it is they're meaning. With this picture for Billy, was there a notification? Was there a notification going into KIFs? Is it KIFs you call it? SIFs, because it's an S at the beginning, I forgot. It's SIFs. SIFs, okay. It's a New Zealand thing. Would there be a notification for Billy? I'm assuming there wouldn't be. No, nobody's going to pick up on that stuff. Would there be different behaviours between Billy and Sarah? Are you going to notice a difference? I'm thinking so. I'm thinking you might see slight differences between these two kids, which are otherwise very, very similar. Does Billy need help? You're damn right Billy needs help. Is there going to be help for him? I don't think so. There's not going to be any support there, unless uncle or auntie or school teacher or somebody just happens to notice something and spend some quality time with this kid. Early intervention. Your minister who was here yesterday mentioned early intervention. Paul, who was speaking yesterday, mentioned early intervention. We need the dollars going to early intervention. We need dollars going to helping these kids when they're just starting to wobble. Yeah? What are the behaviours we're likely to see? If you've got unavailable parents, how's that going to change you? If you've got parents who can't be that emotional connection for you, who can't teach you in your first 7 years, what's that going to do? It's going to make Billy a bit clingy. You know what I mean by clingy? He just kind of holds on to everybody, won't let anybody leave him. He's got attachment stuff going on. High levels of attachment problems. Or no attachment. He's going to be vying for attention because he's left over here in the corner. You guys are all doing what you do, and imagine Billy's just left over here to his own devices. He'll hate it over here. He feels abandoned over here. He feels empty over here. So he's going to try and get your attention, and he's going to get your attention in remarkable ways. He's going to do things that press your buttons. He's going to do things that get what is known in the trade as negative attention. But I would question that term. I would question whether it's negative attention at all. It's the only attention this kid's ever had. So how could it possibly be negative? If you've never had positive attention, it's not negative attention, it's attention. Society's training this kid how to press your buttons. That's why, when you're looking after them, they do behaviours, they have behaviours that concern you, because they know what it is they need to do to you to press your buttons. And it's different for you. And young Billy's really good at learning what the buttons are, because he spent so much time over there in the corner just watching, just understanding. It's just going to intensify them. They're just going to keep on going. They're going to become default behaviours. If Billy didn't get that self-soothing, then how's that going to leave Billy? Billy's going to be confused. He's not going to have any emotional framework. He's not going to understand the difference between happiness, sadness, anticipation, frustration, disappointment, anger, or any of those other 100 emotions that we know very, very well. Young Billy didn't get the learning. He didn't get the platform to learn this stuff. He hates the feelings because he doesn't understand them. He hates them, so he'll avoid expressing them. Sometimes he's even ridiculed at home. On the rare occasion when he does express an emotion, he gets ridiculed, so it holds it deeper in. He's going to start externalizing emotions. He's going to start his, as they refer to, high-risk activities. I'm really not sure what high-risk activities means. Risk-taking behaviours, I'm not sure what that means either. Risk-taking behaviours for me when I was a kid in Scotland are remarkably different to risk-taking behaviours for these little munchkins in the front row here. And I'm sure you can imagine that some of the young people that you support, that you care for, and that you work with have got really high externalized behaviours. If we ignore these, it reinforces the behaviour, and the kid's just going to keep on doing it. Young people don't do things unless it's worked in the past for them. Do you know what I mean by that? A young person's not going to shout at you and scream at you and try and intimidate you if somebody hasn't folded in the past and given them what they wanted. Yeah? When you say no to the young person and they keep on challenging that no, that's because that challenging has worked in the past. Yeah? We can't be part of that. We need to be the ones that are going to stop that process. We need to be the ones that are going to help these kids to learn. The tough love, some people refer to it as, I just think of it as parenting, really. Billy wasn't taught rules. Billy wasn't taught turn-taking. He didn't catch up with his mates. No self-regulation for Billy. Billy doesn't know how to self-regulate. Billy didn't have anybody who said, see how you're going from the jigsaw to the Lego to the painting? Why don't you just do one thing at a time, Billy? Why don't you just do the jigsaw? And when you're finished with that, put it in its box, put it up on the shelf, and then you can do the Lego. And Billy's going, no, but I want to do this. I want to do. And the parent's saying, yeah, I know you want to do that, but just slow down, do this first, and then you can move on. But, yeah, I know the but thing. That's teaching kids to self-regulate. If we don't teach kids to self-regulate, they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to look like they've got ADHD. Do we diagnose ADHD in New Zealand? Oh yeah, I'm sure we do. Now, just on a side note, ADHD is a real diagnosis, okay? Kids with ADHD really can't manage without medication. Kids like Billy, who were never taught to self-regulate, that's a whole different picture altogether, yeah? No self-regulation. Minimal empathy. You learn empathy when you catch up with your mates. As kids, you learn about empathy. There's nobody taking control in my world, so I'm going to take control. I'm going to be a controlling kid. I'm going to be the kid that determines what volume the car radio is going to be set at and what music we listen to. I'm going to be the controlling kid that controls our conversation. I'm going to control absolutely everything because I need to take control because nobody else does. The adults don't take control, so I'm going to take control. Sometimes people see that as being a skill. Well, that's a quality. You know, this young person is so mature. They're so able to make big decisions. Well, they shouldn't be. They should be playing with Lego and jigsaws. Yeah, they shouldn't be making life and death decisions about, you know, groceries and bills and all that kind of stuff. When some at the age of 5 are. If we ignore these, it reinforces the behaviour. We all have a role to play here. We all need to be challenging this. We all need to be recognising this and getting in early. Would you agree with that? Yeah? Cool. Okay, let's have an update on Billy. Where's Billy at? There hasn't been any remarkable improvement at home for this little kid. Billy was sitting in the corner of his room where he always sits, and he saw Dad hitting Mum. Dad lost his temper, hit Mum. Mum started crying. Dad went out the door. And nobody debriefed Billy. Nobody helped Billy with this. They just left him witnessing this and unsure what it meant. Later on, Mum grabbed Billy by the arm and pulled him and shouted at him for something. Billy ended up in hospital because there was a lot of pain in his arm. It was a really sharp pain. So they x-rayed his arm. Before they x-rayed it, the triage nurse came over. And the triage nurse said, "Hi, Billy, what happened to your arm?" And Billy's mum said, "He fell off his bike." And Billy's thinking, "I've not got a bike. How did that happen? And why is Mum doing that? Why did Mum's... Is that because I was bad? Did Mum hurt me because I was bad? And Mum's embarrassed about how bad I am, so she's lying? Is that what's just happening here?" You see how confusing this is going to be for Billy? Yep. Is this traumatizing for Billy? I think so. Is there a notification going into SIFs? Not KIFs, SIFs. Is there a notification going in? Probably not, unless that triage nurse was really switched on and said, "Oh, really, a bike? Billy, come on, let's go and have a chat. We've got a room in here for the kids to play in while they're waiting on the doctor. So, tell me more about your bike. What colour is it?" You know, and had a conversation and perhaps got to the truth. Are there going to be strange behaviours coming up for Billy? I would say yes. Does Billy need help? Definitely. Is there going to be help for him? Potentially not. Again, he's fallen through these gaps. Yeah. Society needs to be able to play a part here in closing these gaps. When this kid witnesses domestic violence, I want you to get into Billy's shoes. and think about what Billy made sense of when he saw that. My dad is half of me. That's a really, really important thing to think about. For you who are caregivers, if you ever find yourself having a go at the birth parents in front of the kid, remember that the birth parent is half of them. Do you get what I mean by that? You're having a go at half of the kid. Yeah? My dad is half of me. Dad said sorry after he hit Mum, so that must make it all right, I suppose. Dad loves Mum. I know he loves Mum. Dad hit Mum after I dropped that milk carton in the kitchen. And then Mum shouted at me. That was at breakfast time. And then in the afternoon, Dad hit Mum and everybody was angry. Was that my fault? Is that because I dropped the milk carton? Dad felt better after hitting Mum. When Dad came back, he was very happy. Then I'm thinking, as Billy, I'm thinking about when Mum hurt me. And I'm thinking, Mum is half of me. Mum's a violent person. Mum's an angry person. Dad's a violent person. Dad's an angry person. They're both equal halves of me. Mum said sorry. I suppose that makes it okay. It must, because they're both saying sorry. Both of my teachers are saying sorry, and that makes it better. Mum loves me. She keeps on telling me she loves me. I must have really upset her for her to have hurt me like that. It's my fault. I need to make sure that Mum doesn't get upset again. I need to protect my mum. So again, more controlling behaviour coming in. Do you see where that's going? Yep. If we ignore this, it reinforces the behaviour. So let's have a look. 6 months later, the story gets a little bit happier towards the end of the book, so stay with me. It's a bit sad just now, would you agree? Yeah, things aren't looking too great for young Billy. There's further deterioration at home. 6 months later, the school have tried their best. He's been absconding. Is that because he's been screaming out to be contained? Is this kid running away so that the adults will keep him safe and they'll hold him back in? That's one way of looking at it. He's been in trouble with the police. Was that on the cards? Was that inevitable? Perhaps, with some kids. There have been notifications. KIFs have popped in to have a visit, to do their assessment. Community agency support, whichever community agency it is that you guys are from, they've been trying to support Billy, but nothing's working really. Further deterioration. KIFs, remove Billy. The people who do the illustrations for my book are from India, and they don't speak an awful lot of English. So I'm sorry if the KIFs workers don't look the way you guys look, but just kind of work with me here. Wait until you see the foster carers. Wait till you see that picture. Foster placement, that's you guys, yeah? Foster mum and foster dad. We didn't have capacity to make it unique and individualized, but that's a picture we come up with. Okay, there was 2 steps there. The time scale between step 1 and step 2 varies. Sometimes when kids are removed, they'll go straight to a placement. Sometimes they'll go a merry little dance before they end up in a placement, yeah? What happens between steps 1 and 2? It's different for every kid. Has anyone here ever had that phone call at 10 to 5 on a Friday afternoon from your agency saying, I know you've got a bed, yeah? Okay. We'll have a look at that. Now, this is an important step. This is a far too important step to trivialize. This is an enormous step for Billy. When Billy arrives in this house, we need to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. When I'm in Australia, there's an organisation called Foster Care Association of Victoria around Melbourne. And they've contracted me to go around and speak to all the carers in different seminars all around Victoria. And one of the exercises that we do during that seminar is we get all the carers and all the working staff, because we all kind of go to the seminar together, we get them into small groups. And we say, if you had a blank canvas and a bottomless pit of resources, how would you make this work? How would you make this introduction of Billy into a foster placement ideal? How would you make it perfect? It's amazing what you guys come up with. Your equivalent in Australia, no more intelligent than you guys, I wouldn't have thought. They've come up with some absolute genius ideas. Genius ideas. Here's one of them. It's really unrealistic, but I loved it for what was behind it. They said, if Billy hasn't been brought up well, and his mum and dad have tried their best, and we've had agencies visit and all that kind of stuff, why does Billy get removed and brought to our house? Why don't you take the parents out and put us in there? And I thought, it would never happen, but it's a kind of cool idea. I like where the thinking comes from. You guys have got the capacity to make changes around this. How can you fine-tune this? When I say this, it might sound like a body bag, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm actually saying a buddy bag, right? A buddy bag that the kid brings with them, with all their important stuff. What might be in that bag? You tell me. What's the important stuff for little Billy? Toys. Teddy? Yep. Photos? Cool. It's going to be whatever it is for Billy. What is that bag going to look like? Carers, tell me. How do these kids arrive at your front door? Is it a nice little rucksack? Has it ever been a rubbish bag? Please, think that through, yeah? Somebody, speak to Nike, speak to Adidas, and get 150 rucksacks from them and store it in your agency. Please don't have these kids walking about with all their worldly goods in a rubbish bag. Happens in Australia, happens in New Zealand, happened in Scotland. When these kids are coming to your house, to your place of stability and safety, with all their stuff in a rubbish bag, and they're passing the homeless community who have got the fancy striped bags. Do you know the ones I mean? Yeah? I'm not saying about any degrees of importance or anything, but the kid gets a message when they're driving by these guys who've got all the fancy bags and they've got all their worldly possessions in a rubbish bag. We need to think about it. In your buddy bag is going to be all the important stuff for this kid. His pajamas, his teddy bear, his diary, his choice of food. He might be a marshmallow kind of kid, and he likes marshmallows. Make sure there's marshmallows available for him. Alarm clock, paper, pens, whatever it is for that kid, make sure that they're there, yeah? If you're one of the workers that's introducing Billy to the placement, spend some time with him. Yeah, I think it's Billy or Bobby or something. Anyway, you'll get to know each other. See you. Not that would ever happen, but spend some time. Plan some visits. So when Billy gets dropped off at this house and gets spinned round a few times and gets totally disorientated, sit down with him and say, I'm going to pop in and see you tomorrow. I'm going to pop in around about lunchtime. Is that okay for you guys if I pop in at lunchtime? Yeah, yep, cool. Okay. I'm going to come at lunchtime. Make sure the kettle's on. Yeah? And then you just drop in. You drop on at lunchtime, and there's no particular activity. You're not taking the kid to McDonald's. Yeah? Please don't take kids to McDonald's. You're not taking the kid to McDonald's. You're just spending time with the kid. So it might be that kind of picture where you've got a planned placement, or it might be something that happens only in Australia. It would never happen here, where you have an overnight emergency placement. Have you heard of this concept? Yeah? Cool. I had a heartbreaking conversation with a foster carer very, very recently. One of the ones I'm working with the kid that lives with her. He's been living with his sister in this foster placement for 18 months as an emergency overnight accommodation option. 18 months. God bless Joan. Joan turned round to me and said, Bryan, should I engage with Billy or should I not? Emergency placement, even if you think it's only going to be overnight, we definitely engage with Billy. Would you agree with that? Beautiful. Do we engage or not? Do we start therapy or not? You've got a mental health worker coming in to see little Johnny. Yeah, when Billy arrives, hey, Johnny, this is Bryan's a mental health worker. Oh, I don't like mental health workers. Well, that's fine, but he's coming in anyway. Yeah, a little introduction. Is there funding available for an overnight emergency placement? Would there be? Yep, there'll be something. Yep. Is there going to be support? And the big question, this was the one that got the tears going. Access with family. Should we have access with the family? What do you think? Definitely. Unless there's some significant reason not to. Then Joan pulled out the spin ball. And she says, Bryan, can you tell me honestly, are the agency really looking for a long-term placement, or is this going to be it? She didn't have that collaboration. She didn't have that network going. She didn't have that open communication with her agency where there was trust. She thought they were playing her. She thought they were just pretending to be looking for a long-term placement. I knew that they were looking for a long-term placement, and I was able to reassure her about that. That's quite concerning, yeah? That people would be in that situation and not know. Would never happen over here. Some support. There is some support for Billy in an overnight situation. So let's look 12 months later. Okay, he was in an overnight accommodation, and then 12 months later, we've got this nice little picture. He's grown a lot in 12 months, this kid. He's really grown. Is he still in placement, or is he just visiting, do you think? Still in placement. This is a cynical story. Looks like he's staying, so what now? Let's look at what we know about Billy. A history of neglect, we know that. We know he's exposed to trauma at an early age. And this afternoon, in my session this afternoon, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the organic damage to the brain caused by emotional trauma in the early years. It is just phenomenally important for us to get our head around this. Emotional abuse, physical abuse at various stages, and who knows what else. He missed out on those first 7 years. He missed out on the important landmark years. Has there been long-term damage? Probably. Is it repairable? You tell me. Can we repair this damage? Yeah, thanks. I would hope so. How are we going to do it, and who's going to do it? How we're going to do it is by using, I suppose, some of the research out there. There's a guy, I'm not sure if you guys will be aware of his work. He's in America. He's called Bruce Perry. Does that name mean anything? Yep. I personally hold Bruce Perry up as a guru. I think of no one else around the trauma field first. Bruce Perry. Yeah? Bruce Perry's got a copy of one of my books, My Big Brain book, and he said he liked it. Oh, how nice was that? I felt like retiring. I just thought, that's me, I've arrived. That's cool. Anyway, moving on. How and who? I suppose it's going to be child and adolescent psych, potentially. Is that what you call them over here? CAMS? Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services? Have you got any other names for them? I'm sure you've got a handful of choice names for them. Have you got some, just hands up if you think the young people you work with or live with need a mental health worker. Put your hand up. Okay, and back down again. Put your hand up if the kids that you're either working with or caring for have got a really good mental health worker just now. It's nowhere near enough hands, is it? Nowhere near enough hands. There are good ones out there, guaranteed. Yeah? There's good ones, there's average ones, and there's ones that you wouldn't trust to walk your dog. Yeah? Just like any other trade in the world. Yeah? Carpenters, bus drivers, anything. You get good, bad, and worse. Billy's carers managed to get CAMS involved. They got this guy. I've got no idea who that's meant to be. No idea at all. When I was in New South Wales doing some training with an agency called Life Without Barriers, not sure if you're aware of their work, there was a girl, Christina, in the audience, and she looked at the images in my book, and she came to that image, and she said, is that meant to be you, Bryan? And I said, well, yeah, it kind of is. And she says, oh, you look really good as a cartoon. Yeah. I've got absolutely no idea whether that's a compliment or not. I don't think it is. I don't think it's a compliment. They really did get CAMS involved. This is how they did it. They used reflection. Remember the reflection exercise from earlier on today? They used reflection. They looked at the situation and they reflected on what Billy needed. Not what was available for Billy and how can we make Billy fit into that. What does Billy need? And how do we know that Billy needs that? Yeah? And do we all agree that Billy needs that? So they fully reflected on it. And they collaborated. They got into bed with the enemy, metaphorically. They got mental health services involved. They communicated clearly between, as it is over in Australia, it's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, it's Child Protection, as our SIFs. And they all started communicating openly about this kid, Billy, and I was part of that conversation. It was a beautiful, beautiful process. Billy didn't engage, though. Sean arrived. Billy didn't engage. After 2 or 3 sessions, Sean's bosses are saying, hey, champ, there's no outcome measurement here. You know, there's no success here. You need to discharge Billy because you're not getting anywhere with him. Cam's looked to discharge. The foster parent said, no, not on my watch. This has to keep on going, and they advocated for it. The foster parents advocated, and then they manipulated Sean. What they did was, every time Sean was driving up the driveway to that house, the kettle would go on. The cup of tea would be sitting waiting, and there was a little tray of biscuits and muffins and all that kind of stuff, because that's what Sean likes. That's manipulation, and I love it. Yeah? That's what you need to be doing. If you get a good worker, manipulate them. It doesn't mean you've got borderline personality disorder just because you manipulate, okay? The foster parents' agency advocated for Billy. So they were shouting from the rooftops, no, mental health. Let's keep on going with this. This is actually working for Billy. So Sean kept meeting with the carers. And Billy was in the bedroom saying, oh, don't want to speak to him, don't want to speak to him. I'm not crazy, I don't want to speak to him. And the carer said, well, that's okay. You don't need to speak to him. And they kept on speaking with Sean. And then Billy, because he was a nosy little bugger, started coming out and listening in. And then Billy said, is it okay if I sit and have a chat? And then the session started. Have you seen that happening before? It's that long-term engagement. There's some heads nodding here, which is really good. Billy and Sean started meeting on their own. They started going down the beach for their meetings because that's where the good work happens. The good work, for me, doesn't happen in a clinic. This face-to-face, tell me what your dad did to you when you were 5 years old, that tends not to work. And again, this afternoon, we're going to look at why that doesn't work. Occasionally, this kind of picture can happen. Occasionally. What Billy and Sean were doing is what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. We're going to talk about how it is we help these kids to repair what the trauma has done to their brain. The trauma has organically changed their brain, and you guys can help to change it back. So let's have a look at some of the stuff that was happening. Billy was taught about his emotions. It started to fill in some of the gaps for Billy. He made some mistakes. He was learning about feelings and he got some of them wrong, and that was okay. He was supported. He learned that it wasn't his fault. He learned that when his dad hit his mum, it wasn't his fault. When his mum hurt him, it wasn't his fault. It couldn't have been his fault. He was only 8 years old. It couldn't have been his fault. It took him a while to believe this. It took him a long time to believe this. Then he started to realize why his parents had hurt him. The awareness about that helped him to reframe what he was thinking. His parents didn't hurt him because they were nasty. They didn't hurt him because they were monsters. They hurt him because they made mistakes. They didn't do the right thing. Potentially because they hadn't been taught when they were 7 years old. Would you agree with that? The parents of these kids, more often than not, aren't monsters. They don't do it right. Yeah? We need to make sure that we provide a framework for Billy to change that multi-generational pathway so that when Billy brings up his kids, it's a little bit different. If it's a big bit different, that's even better. What we had here with Billy and Sean was regular, safe sessions. And at that first session, Sean sat down with Billy and said, mate, you don't need to talk. I'm going to be here for an hour. If you decide to talk, that's cool. If not, I'm still going to be here. Yeah? When you start to get uncomfortable, leave. Or if you start to get uncomfortable and you want me to leave, let me know. And I'll go and sit with your carers until it's my time to leave. Yep. You can choose whether to talk or not, and there was no pressure. We all need that. We all need that opportunity to talk. We all, carers, please, find that resource that allows you to vent. Yeah, that allows you to debrief in a safe way. If the organisation that's supporting you just now doesn't have that in place, have a conversation about it. Yeah, there are resources available for debriefing. Debriefing allows you to reflect. Again, what was said earlier on about leaders and reflection, for you to be the leader in your house, for you to be part of that leadership group in your house, you need to be able to reflect. When your brain is full of sad stories, there's no reflection happening. We need to find a way of discharging that. This is therapeutic. Therapeutic support changes behaviour time and time and time and time again throughout the world. And that's why you guys are great at what you do, because you can do that. You might not even realise you're doing it, but you are doing it. Caregivers, would you agree with that? This is what you do? Yep, cool. So, is it a happy ending? I don't know for Billy. Is it going to be a happy ending? Hands up if you think it's a happy ending at the end of the book. Good guess. I wasn't wanting to write a book for kids to read and then they all start crying about it. You know, that's not going to help me at all. But it is good to cry. Okay. Let's have realistic expectations. Please, let's have realistic expectations. This isn't Hollywood. This isn't a movie. You know, if you think that you're going to fix these kids, have a think about that. These kids don't need fixing. They just need coaching, mentoring, helping. Give them a little bit of direction, some of that love and caring that they didn't have. If you expect to fix them, you're going to be very disappointed. We can coach kids like Billy, but we might not be able to markedly change them, and that's just the nature of it. Sometimes we can be part of remarkable journeys. How many of you have been caring for in excess of 10 years, let's say, just hands up? In excess of 15 years? 20? Oh dear. 25? 30? 35? Okay. I'm sure you've had, those of you who've still got your hands up, I'm sure you've had some wonderful, wonderful stories where you've bumped into kids that you used to care for and have come out with gorgeous, gorgeous little anecdotal stories that you'd forgotten all about, but they hadn't forgotten. Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Facebook for my sins, and one of them found me on there as well. Oops, my bad. Okay, you've been part of remarkable journeys. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous thing to be part of. It's what gets us up in the morning. It's what gets me up in the morning. I know that I've got 4 or 5 clients that I'm seeing just now that are a real challenge, really in your face, challenging kids, and I love them. They're fantastic kids. And we've got an opportunity to get them on the right path, same as Billy. Here's some of the kids I've worked with. Angela, I worked with for about 5 years. Kid in care. She was in a resi unit. Then she was living in a kinship placement with her nan. And then she was homeless for a while. And for 4 or 5 years, however long, 5 years it must have been, I was working with her and I saw her every Tuesday for 5 years. And my bosses at Children Adolescent Psych were saying, really? You're going to keep on seeing this kid? And I said, yeah, we're getting places. Just watch this. After about 3 months, Ange would tolerate having a conversation with me after about 3 months. After about 6 months, I was in a car with her. We used to just go out in the car, go for drives. And we're heading up this road called the Hume Freeway, just outside Melbourne. And she turned round to me and said, Bryan, sometimes I feel sad. And I thought, finally, after 6 months, she's given me something therapeutic. And I thought, I better not jump in here, right? I better just take this nice and easy. So I said, that's okay, Ange. We all feel sad sometimes. And I'll tidy up what Ange said, but you'll still get the content, I'm sure. She says, Bryan, shut the F up. I'm talking, you're listening. Thank you, Angela. You just taught me the pace. I went too hard there. And we need to learn from that. When the kids teach us an important lesson like that, we need to learn from it. Sometimes you get in too close. Sometimes you go in too fast. Yeah, sometimes you use touch too early. You know, we need to pick up on the messages these kids are giving us. Sometimes Billy will visit his ex-carers. Billy's an adult now. And he remembered that the key to the front door was underneath a flower pot. Do you guys keep a key under your flower pot at the front door? I'm hoping you don't, because that's the first place that the burglars are going to look, right? Underneath the mat, flower pot, and the welcome home stone on the side of the door. Billy sometimes visits. What I think about when I'm working with kids like Billy is that I hope for the best but plan for the worst. Try and get that the right way around. Hope for the best. High goals. High goals, high expectations for these kids. But get ready, because somebody's going to screw it up for you. You can have all the best laid plans, and somebody's just going to rip that rug out from under you, but you're going to bounce back up again, and you're going to keep on chipping away. And you're never going to give up on these kids, because you don't. You just keep on giving. Okay, to finish off, where do we go from here? I'm unlikely to become a foster parent. We will have this conversation on the plane on the way home. We've already flagged it with Paddy in Georgia. What do you think about having a foster kid in the house? Oh, that sounds good. Okay, they don't realise. When we get home, we'll go back to the real world. And Deb will carry on her work. I'll carry on my work. You guys will carry on your work. And I'll continue to support foster carers. I'll continue to have you guys as my VIP clients, because foster carers are the ones out there who are really doing the work. I'm unlikely to be a foster parent, but I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. You're fantastic at being foster parents. Yeah, it's natural for some people. I don't think we've reached saturation point yet. I don't think we've got foster carers coming up to the front door of your organisations on Monday mornings at 9 o'clock saying, please, please, can I be a foster carer? Yeah? Don't be worried that somebody's going to steal your job from you, because it's really not going to happen. I can help clinically. I can help educationally. I do an awful lot of education work. Invite me back. Together, we can do this. This is about working together, this conference. Let's get good at working together. Let's get good at finding those people out there who can help you and who can help you best.